In Chile, the plebiscite for the approval or rejection of a new constitution advances without incidents. In Argentina, Vice President Cristina Fernandez's lawyer denounces alleged manipulation of key evidence in the investigation into the assassination attempt. And in Europe, almost 1,000 asylum seekers crossed the English Channel on Saturday to reach the United Kingdom. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. The popular consultation for the approval or rejection of a new constitution advances in Chile. After exercising his right to vote, President Gabriel Boric called for national unity. Close to 1,000 polling stations have opened this Sunday to start one of the most important votes in recent history, in which more than 15.1 million Chileans are called to vote. The Chileans will decide whether to approve a new constitution or, on the contrary, keep the current Magna Carta bequeathed by the military dictatorship of Augusto Pinochet. At a press conference and after voting, President Gabriel Boric called all sectors to national unity to be able to move on this process.
I can guarantee that our will and our action, regardless of the result, will be to call for a broad national unity of all sectors, of social organizations, of civil society, of all parties. We want to listen to all voices in order to move forward with this process.
And on a midday briefing, Raúl García Espillaga, National Director of Chile's Electoral Service, said turnout in Sunday's referendum was being positive.
The day so far has been a very calm one. What we have been able to appreciate through the press and television is that there is a good level of turnout at the voting centers. It is difficult to make forecasts or turnout predictions, but we believe that we may have another very positive surprise in these matters as well.
In an interview with our news multi-platform teleSUR, Victor Chanfro, student leader, said that the demands for social rights led the people to mobilize in 2019 in the midst of the social outburst.
The most important aspect and what led us to vote for those of us who were mobilized in 2019 and from then on is mainly the guarantee of social rights such as the right to housing, to free and guaranteed education with universal access. These are important points that led us to mobilize during the social outburst, during the previous and subsequent years, and those are the main issues. In addition to extremely important health issues, guarantees at trade union level are very important advance in relation to the previous legislation that existed. And that is not just on paper, but implemented.
Electoral delegates reported the day is going on normally.
It's been super quiet, very fast, quite fluid. For a moment there was a little bit of an overcrowding outside, but the flow has been steady and quite fast. We haven't had any problem.
Let us review the most relevant data from this Sunday's elections in Chile.
This Sunday, Chileans choose between approving or rejecting a constitutional proposal of 388 articles to replace the current Magna Carta drafted during the dictatorship of Augusto Pinochet. During this day, more than 15 million people between 18 and 70 years of age are eligible to vote between 8 a.m. and 6 p.m. local time. In order to vote, it is required to have a valid or expired passport or identity card after 2019. Voting becomes mandatory again for the first time in more than a decade. The Electoral Service, Surveil, set up a total of 2,914 polling stations with 38,472 tables for vote reception. The electoral body estimates a higher turnout than in previous calls. After the election, it is estimated that Surveil will have preliminary results around 8 p.m. if the difference between both options allows it. Although the entity responsible for delivering the definitive results is the Election Qualification Court. In the event that the constitutional proposal is approved, the President of the Republic must convene the full Congress for its enactment within a maximum of 5 days after the official publications of the result.
We move on to other topics. In Argentina, Vice President Cristina Fernandez's lawyer denounced alleged manipulation of key evidence in the investigation of magnicide attempt. Gregorio Dalbon, defense attorney for Cristina Fernandez, described as extremely serious the responsibility of the judge and prosecutor in charge of the case after learning that the cell phone seized from the attacker was received by the airport security police turned on in airplane mode inside an open envelope, and factory research showing that the chain of custody was violated. The equipment had been transferred to that instance because it had the necessary system to extract its data despite being password protected. Dalbon stated that all those who touch the cell phone will be subject to legal action. Panama's social organizations denounced that the government has abandoned the dialogue table after 44 days of sessions and warned that they will return to the streets. The associations had warned that the executive was using palliative measures to mask the agreements reached in the talks facilitated by the Catholic Church. This Saturday, the topics to be discussed and the incorporation of new actors became the main points of the agenda. So far, the government has not complied with the regulation of prices of the 72 agreed products and has warned by Saul Mendes, General Secretary of the Single Union of Construction Workers, neither has it complied with full prices. The leader has denounced that the government refuses to discuss the structural problems of the country. Ecuador's National Police reported the seizure of firearms, sharp objects, and unauthorized items during a search of the Guayas Penitentiary, which was shaken the day before by an inmate riot. The police detailed the discovery of at least 2 rifles, pistols, and thousands of large and medium caliber ammunition, as well as dozens of edge weapons and explosives in Pavilions 3 and 4 of the prison, epicenter of the violent events that took place on Friday. The authorities emphasized that the threat was contained and officials are taking control of the 2 penitentiary blocks. We're going to take a short break now. Join us again after this. Welcome back to From the South. In Paraguay, during the first semester, the public ministry registered over 2,000 reports of child sexual abuse and at least 835 cases of mistreatment against children and teenagers. The prosecutor's office stated that a total of 2,031 victims were reported, with a higher incidence in the Central Department where 824 complaints were received, followed by Asunción with 216 and Alto Paraná with 201 cases. The entity added that in a lesser extent, crimes such as rape, human trafficking, sexual abuse of persons under guardianship, child pornography, and pimping are also issues that concern the Paraguayan institutions. Every May 31st, Paraguay commemorates the National Day Against Child Mistreatment and Sexual Abuse in memory of one of the most heartfelt cases occurred 18 years ago. This Sunday, Luis Ignacio Lula da Silva, candidate of the Let's Go Together for Brazil coalition, met with women's movements at the Metal Workers Union in Sao Paulo. The event brought together the Domestic Workers Union among other sectors within the framework of the campaign for presidential election in the nation. A recent report by the International Labour Organization on Domestic Work indicates that Brazil has around 6 million workers in this category, 90% of which are women. Based on these figures, the candidate recalled the social protection programs he implemented during his term in office and said that in his next administration he will adjust the minimum wage above inflation and will facilitate renegotiating the debts of low-income families. Colombia's President Gustavo Petro began in Manizales, in the center of the country, regional talks for the construction of the National Development Plan. The President made several announcements during the social dialogue, which was mostly attended by young people after touring the city in the company of the Minister of Housing, Catalina Velasco, and the Director of the Administrative Department of the Presidency, Mauricio Liscano. The head of state attended a meeting with young people and communities where he made important announcements about education, sustainability, peace, and economic development. The event was used by the President to explain in detail the law of the National Development Plan.
What we will do, to put it clearly, even if the words do not please certain sectors of society, is to unleash a social mobilization to participate area by area in the construction of a law, the law of the National Development Plan, in which, by constitutional order, all the projects are registered with their value, to be benefited by the budgets in the next 4 years.
In Europe, authorities report that almost 1,000 migrants crossed the English Channel in the last 24 hours. According to the British Ministry of Defence, the migrants crossed the Channel towards the United Kingdom using some 20 precariously constructed boats. They highlight that over 26,000 people have crossed the Channel in 2022 and expect the number to rise to 60,000 people. Meanwhile, French authorities report that some 190 people were rescued from the waters in 4 operations along the country's coast on Saturday. The English Channel is used by migrants escaping from conflicts and economic situations sparked by Western powers in countries such as Iran, Afghanistan, Yemen, Syria, and Sudan in order to cross from Europe to the United Kingdom. The German government announced Sunday the approval of a third relief package of more than 65 billion euros for consumers and businesses to cope with the impact of inflation. The package is the largest of the 3 approved so far. This was confirmed by Chancellor Olaf Scholz after the meeting with his allied forces, where the measure was approved. The decision comes after the increase in electricity prices, which last day reached record levels in the history of the country, while the cost of natural gas continues to rise. The package covers discounts on public transportation and tax breaks for companies with high energy consumption. The Russian government warned that with the arrival of the winter sanctions will lead to an imminent intensification of the energy crisis in the European Union. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov blamed European politicians who imposed sanctions against Moscow as the main culprits for the rise in energy bills. The Russian official also pointed out that Gazprom has remained a reliable supplier with a high reputation over the decades and said he was convinced of maintaining this commitment. These statements come after Gazprom announced that it had shut down the last operational turbine at the Portovaya compressor station due to an oil leak. Russia denounces another Ukrainian attack on the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant as a UN mission evaluates the situation in the area.
On September the 3rd, to target the territory of the nuclear power plant, Ukrainian forces used 8 unmanned aerial vehicles carrying munitions. The approaching Ukrainian drones were blocked by Russian electromagnetic devices, after which a controlled explosion of the grenades was performed at deserted areas over half a kilometer away from the plant's secured perimeter.
teleSUR will dedicate its coverage of the Football World Cup Qatar 2022 to the figure of the Armando Maradona, who accompanied our crew in the last 2 World Cups. With the football star, we also tour our continent with the show De Sur da Viajero. We want this tribute to have its own music. With this in mind, we invite you to write and compose a song for teleSUR's coverage of Qatar 2022 Football World Cup. It must be an original song, never recorded before or published in any media, and free of legal attachments. Record the song in any format, even with your cell phone, and send it as an attachment to comunicaciones@telesurtv.net with the following information: author's name, nationality, and name of the song. The closing date of the call for entries is September 10, 2022. A jury of prestigious musicians and composers from the region will select the winning piece. The prize will be the recording of the song, a video clip, and the wide diffusion of the work. 1 week after the closing of the call, teleSUR will announce the results. We have more news coming up after a final short break, so don't go away. Welcome back from the south. Brazilian Amazon records its worst month of August for forest fires in 12 years. The Brazilian INPE Space Agency said its satellites recorded 33,116 fires in the rainforest in August this year, compared to 28,060 last year in the same month. The number was nearly triple that recorded on the so-called Day of Fire, August 10, 2019, when farmers launched a coordinated plan to burn huge amounts of felled rainforest in the northern state of Paraná. All the worst August fires since then happened during the 4-year term of far-right President Jair Bolsonaro, who is seeking re-election next month. Bolsonaro, an agribusiness ally, faces international criticism for a surge in Amazon destruction on his watch. More than 1,000 people have been evacuated in Taizhou City, East China's Zhejiang province, as Typhoon Hinnam-nor approaches the country's eastern coastal areas and heads for landfall as a super typhoon. Typhoon Hinnam-nor brought strong gales to the Dacheng Island in Taizhou, with wind speed reaching about 28.4 meters per second. The high wind also generated stormy waves, which kept beating on the shore. Local authorities have organized people to patrol in some risk points and evacuate people in low-lying areas. As of 2 p.m. Sunday, a total of 1,033 people had been evacuated to safety in Taizhou. In Ningbo city of Zhejiang, all the people in a village of Shiku Township had been transferred to safe places for resettlement. The Ministry of Natural Resources declared Saturday a level 2 emergency as Typhoon Hinnam approaches. The typhoon is expected to make landfall in the coastal areas of the northeastern part of Zhejiang.
A total of 369 people in our village have been evacuated, and 39 of them were sent here. We have prepared enough daily necessities for them. Some officials of our village have been stationed here to ensure people's safety.
Millions of people in Pakistan are in need of aid as the flash floods triggered by heavy monsoon rains had swept away their houses and inundated farmlands, turning their world upside down all of a sudden. According to the National Disaster Management Authority, the recent floods in Pakistan have affected more than 33 million people, killing more than 1,200, including 400 children, and injuring over 6,000 people since mid-June. After the devastating floods, humanitarian assistance from various countries, including China, started to flow into Pakistan. The United Nations and Pakistan made an appeal this week for $160 million in emergency funding to help millions affected in the South Asian country. Many non-governmental organizations, charity institutions, philanthropists, and individuals are collecting and distributing required items in response to the overwhelming negative impact of the floodings.
As you can see, the wheat was reaching 12 to 13 inches high. But now the floodwater has risen to such an elevation, devastating all of our wheat and other crops. We sleep on the roadside. We have nothing now. There is no other way.
We have lost our farmland and everything. We are making a living on odd jobs.
Sudanese police reported on Sunday at least 112 people dead and tens of thousands of homes damaged or destroyed by torrential rains that have lashed the country since May. The government declared a state of emergency in August because of heavy flooding in 6 states in the country, which is also suffering a severe economic crisis. According to the United Nations, 1 in 3 Sudanese needs humanitarian aid. Inflation is approaching 200% every month. The currency is in free fall, and since the coup led by Army Chief Abdel Fattah al-Burhan on October 25, 2021, the price of bread has risen tenfold. Citing government data, the UN said that the floods had affected 226,000 people across Sudan. Kenya's President-elect William Ruto says he will respect the Supreme Court's decision expected Monday, confirming or invalidating the results of the vote disputed by his rival Raila Odinga.
Even as we begin the journey as a nation, that we agree that Kenya is going to be a country based on the rule of law. And tomorrow, equally, we will respect the decision of the judiciary because we are a country based on the rule of law and respect for all the institutions. That is the only way we will remain democratic. That's the only way we will remain a constitutional country, and that is the only way the citizens of the Republic of Kenya will be equal.
Five-man Ironsman rode away from the remains of a breakaway to win on the tough climb up the Sierra Nevada on Sunday, while Remco Evenepoel lost more of his Vuelta lead. Ironsman, a 22-year-old Dutchman with DSM, powered away on the final slopes of the 22-kilometer final climb of the 152.6-kilometer stage 15, which ended at 2,513, the highest altitude of the race. Belgian Evenepoel, who cracked at the end of Saturday's stage, losing 52 seconds of his lead again, could not keep up with his main rivals. Spaniard Enric Mas of Movistar, who started the day in third place, escaped from the elite group first, finishing second to gain 32 seconds, with bonuses included on Evenepoel, a 22-year-old with quick step. Second place Slovenian Primož Roglič of Jumbo left his attack late but quickly dropped Evenepoel and gained 15 seconds. Evenepoel's lead shrunk to 1 minute 34 seconds over three-time defending champion Roglič, with Mas at 2.01.
Yeah, it's still really hard to believe. Like, it really has to sink in. Yeah, I can't believe it. Like the Queen stage on the Vuelta, Sierra Nevada on altitude, everybody was talking about the stage. Yeah, and to be honest, I didn't feel super good on the stage, but like apparently the others felt their legs even more. So
teleSUR English continues to grow its signal and reaches Europe. You can order from your cable dealer or tune it yourself. These parameters that you see on screen are in place since July 1st, and quite soon further changes will be implemented for the signals in the Middle East and Africa. Now more than ever, the world connects to us, and our stories are heard in all the faraway nations. This news multi-platform will continue providing truthful content to oppose the hegemonic media's narrative and unfaithfulness to our audience. We have come to the end of this news brief. From you can find this and telesurenglish.net. You can also join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Telegram. And now you can also follow us on TikTok at the account at teleSUR English, in which you will be able to see news in different formats, news updates, and much more. For teleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.